Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast to inspire you to take your career to the next level. In this podcast, I chat with amazing professionals who are leaders in their field and find out what's made them a success. Many of them have successfully made changes in their careers. They may have changed industry, changed job function, made big city or country moves, or taken the huge leap into entrepreneurship. I also share practical and actionable career tips for those who want to explore what to do next in their career and aren't sure about what steps to take to get moving. Subscribe to this podcast for regular updates or visit me at janejacksoncoach.com.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas introducing Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that will inspire you to take control of your career and your life. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. Be prepared to ignite.
Welcome back to my Careers podcast, where I interview fascinating professionals who have made amazing career changes. Today, I'm delighted to have with me on the show Victoria Rose. Now, Victoria has had an amazing personal journey, and here's a brief overview to introduce her. Victoria was born in a pub a long time ago in a faraway place. Okay, it was Albany, Western Australia. At 18 years old, her mother became an unmarried mother. Banished to the country, she worked as a barmaid in the hotel. One day she fell down the stairs and thought that was the cause of her pain. Little did she realize Victoria Rose was about to burst into the world, and burst she did. Sadly, her uncelebrated entry into the physical world set the tone for an uncelebrated life. However, I can tell you that changed for sure. Growing up in an environment of secrets, shame and struggle, her future happiness looked unlikely. Then one day, she decided to do something different. At 18 years old, she set sail for a 2-year working holiday in the UK to discover what life was all about. 32 years ago, as a soldier in the Australian Army Reserve, she trained over 7,000 officers and soldiers in weapons, drill and theory, and was promoted to the rank of warrant officer. Victoria says her most important role has been as a single parent to her 2 children. She's also worked as a real estate agent for almost a decade. Then, at the age of 58, she jumped the corporate ship and started her own corporate training business. And for the last 3 years, baby boomer women have attended her workshops in Melbourne on how to be resilient and how to live their best life. Victoria even wrote a book about it entitled How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life. Now let's welcome this amazing woman, Victoria Rose, to the show. Good afternoon, Victoria.
Good afternoon, Jane, and thank you so much for that introduction.
Well, just going through everything you've done, I mean, we need to make a film of this. It needs to be a movie or a documentary or something, because you've done so much, and obviously you are a very resilient lady. And so I want to find out all about you and also all about your business now, which is the Leadership Voice. And to start us off, how about let's find out a little bit about your early days. What sort of career did you dream about when you were a little girl?
Interesting question, because when I was young, I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to be, Jane, and I admired those who seemed to know that. I jokingly say I didn't know until I turned 50. I don't know if you've seen the movie Advanced Styles. In that movie, 94-year-old Ilona Royce Smithkin said, "I did not find myself until I turned 80. Whew. But when, I know, she was fabulous. But when you look back on your life, there are clues. So here are just some of the clues. To do my high school homework, I'd line up all my siblings' toys along the wall and I'd deliver my homework to them. I was a leader in a youth group. I joined the Sea Rangers and as you know, taking that step to go to the UK for a 2-year working holiday, 18 years old, was a pretty courageous step to take.
You must have really enjoyed it. So when you landed in the UK, did you know anybody there, and did you know what you were going to do?
No, I had no clue. My father was English, and he had organised for me to go and stay with these people. And I didn't stay there for very long because it wasn't that much fun. But I ended up moving down to Cardiff and lived in a suburb called Splot. Can you imagine that? Splot.
Sounds interesting. Okay.
I know. And the only time Splot looked any good was early in the morning when it was covered with snow. And the reason why I know that is because in those days I worked as a computer operator for the Rover Car Company when computers were as big as a house. Yet those computers did not have the power of our smartphones today. What a world we live in.
Yes, that's right. I remember those huge, what do they call them? CPUs, central processing units, and they would take up a whole room and they'd have to be air conditioned and they kept breaking down all the time.
Oh, this was more than a room. This particular one was massive. And I don't know if you have ever seen an image of a 5 gigabyte drive that takes 3 men in this image to manhandle it up the ramp into the truck. Our lives have changed.
You know, it's incredible when you think about it now, and you get a thumb drive that's got like 32 gigabytes, and it's it costs just a few dollars. It doesn't really cost very much at all. So it's really changed a lot. So you were a computer operator in the UK, and then. Now, it sort of jumps forward here in this info that I have of you, that you're a soldier in the Australian Army. So there's a little bit of a gap here. You're in the UK, computer operator, working at Rover. What happened then?
So then I did the working holiday thing. I mean, even though it was courageous, I did it on my own. It wasn't uncommon for young Aussies in those days to on a ship sail to the UK, and in those days it was much cheaper to sail, unlike today where it's much cheaper to jump on a flight and fly. And so because I was over there on a working holiday, I did the computer operating, got some more money together, and just went over to Ireland, travelled around Spain, and where else did I go? France. So did that sort of backpacking, walking around. It was a fascinating experience for an 18-year-old. And then when my 2 years was over, a Welshman decided to come back to Australia with me, and we got married here. And in my mid-20s, I gave birth to my first child, a little girl.
Oh, how lovely. Lovely. And then back in Australia, what happened? You were raising your children. Did you take a bit of a career break because of motherhood, or did you continue working?
I did work and as a data processor then, but then after about 9 years of marriage, I decided to join the Army Reserve. There is a whole story behind that. I went with my sister because she was going to join, and I was there as support for her, and I was the one that ended up joining, which was a bit of a shock to my husband at the time. And by that time, I had a year-old son, so that was my second child. And then I did the recruit camp. Honestly, to do something like that, it blew my mind, and I realized that it was doing the stuff that I did as a reservist. Now, my core was is the oxymoron. Do you know what the oxymoron core is?
No, what's the oxymoron core?
Army intelligence.
Oh, okay. That's intriguing.
Yes. So of course there's stuff I can't tell you, but
I want to know.
Oh, I can't tell you.
Okay, so you're in the oxymoron core and
did some amazing things. I mean, I fired a short-range anti-armor weapon, 2 rounds. I know how to fire machine guns, rifles, pistols. I've taken them apart and put them back together again. I'd probably struggle a little bit now if I had to do it.
Oh gosh, I'd be scared of you.
Look,
but that's fantastic because as a young woman, I mean that's a brave thing to do.
Well, I guess when you're in that environment, it's what you do. But what I realize is, and it actually wasn't until I wrote my book, because writing a book is, as you would know, Jane, quite cathartic. It's challenging, yeah. And it's not until you've written something down that you join the dots about your own life. And I realized that it was the leadership training that I got in the military that actually helped me live through those earlier years, and because then I became a single parent, and it kept me going. And so as far as an occupation, I just made the choice to be at home with my children, to be a supporting parent, and still do my Army Reserve though, because it can be interesting and sometimes soul-destroying in some ways to just be at home with the children. I found it that way, and I had no family support. So I needed to have some outside help to keep me focused and on the right track. And for me, it was the absolute best thing to do.
And I think being in the Australian Army Reserve, it's something where you know you're doing something very meaningful as well. And, you know, it's of benefit to the community. Now, I found out that you've trained over 7,000 officers in weapons, drill, and obviously theory too. And then you were promoted to the rank of warrant officer. Now that's a huge, well, actually, like career progression, isn't it? To become a trainer within the Army Reserve, to actually train so many officers. Tell me a little bit about your training background.
Okay, so it's officers and soldiers, and mainly the officers, because it's reservists, they were officer cadets. So they were doctors and dentists and people who, like lawyers who had a profession and were getting into the Army Reserve based on their profession, unlike people like myself who had to go through the recruit camps, and it's a whole different scenario. So I remember this clearly. As a female, in my day, I was the only female sergeant in the sergeant's mess. So here I was with these officer cadets. So they're lawyers, they're as I've said, barristers, doctors, dentists, and this one guy did not like that I was a female, giving him instructions on how to operate in a drill session. And I remember when I finished doing the session, he actually came up to me and apologized. So it's those little things that help you realize that you do have something to offer and how to be. When you know your stuff, you have to stand in that power and deliver what you know.
And also, as the only woman at that time, you would have been regarded actually as a pioneer and someone that we, other women, could look up to, because it would have been quite a challenging situation for you to be, surrounded by so many men who are used to being trained by other men.
I did a lot of side-by-side work with a lot of regular Army guys as well, because it's a training group, so they had a lot of regular Army come to do the training as well as Army reservists, and many of them had never ever worked with a female before, ever. So it was difficult for them as well. It was a whole learning curve. I don't know how I survived now I think about it.
Well, I would attribute it to your very clear communication style, because obviously you're able to impart information so clearly, and also your leadership capability. And, you must be able to influence and put people at ease so that they can actually put their trust in you too. So, fantastic job, and actually really good grounding for everything else that you were going to move on to in your life as well. So 32 years ago, that was when you joined the Australian Army Reserve, and then a bit of time has passed. And also you mentioned that you worked as a real estate agent, which is completely different, and then it's now in sales. So how did you transition into that?
As I mentioned, I was on the supporting parents pension there because I chose to stay at home and look after my children. And it was interesting to get society's view on that. Some people thought that I was doing the wrong thing with that I should have been out there working in a part-time job. So those people, men and women, that choose to support their children actually be at home with them. There's a lot of flack that they get, and yet they have the most important job, and that's bringing up Australia's future, those generations of tomorrow. It's the most important job of all. So when I chose to go into, my children got to a certain age, and then the supporting parents pension no longer would work. So I had to think, what could I do here? I had two options. One was insurance and one was real estate. They were the only two things that appealed to me. I didn't take insurance, and here was my reasoning. When you're dealing in insurance, and I hope I don't offend any insurance people out there, but this was my view. When you're in insurance, you're dealing with fear. And I didn't want to deal with people's fear. Whereas I saw real estate as dealing with people with their dreams, and that really appealed to me. So I went into real estate. It took me a long time to understand how to be ethical in real estate and also get paid. Because in Western Australia, which is where I did this, in those days you didn't get a retainer. Not that I think a retainer is all that good, but that is worth a whole podcast. But you only got paid by commission, and my children seemed to expect me to put food in their belly and clothes on their back. So I had to start earning money. So there was a lot of pressure, and I finally did it. And I loved real estate. I loved helping the vendors sell their home. There's a feeling about walking into a vendor's home and thinking, wow, what could we do with this? I loved it.
Yeah, I think, with real estate, it's such an interesting career path, and I know a lot of people who are in real estate, and my husband also is in real estate, and he just loves it because, you get to help people. Sometimes people have to sell. There's a lot of different reasons why they're going to be selling their family home. They're not always investors, but especially for the people who have lived somewhere for almost all of their lives, and now they're getting a little bit older and they need to sell. There's a lot of psychology involved in it as well, to be able for them to trust you and know that you're going to do the right thing for them. So I think with your communication skills and your influencing abilities, I'm not surprised that moving into a sales capacity with a heart, with a heart and dealing with people's dreams. I like the way that you said that, that you would excel in that area. Now, moving forward a few more years, you jumped the corporate ship and you started your own training business. So tell me about your business now.
My business, I call the mother site, the absolute tippy-toppy website, theleadershipvoice.com. And from that hangs my other businesses. So I have got my corporate training, which is Training to Live, and then I've got my baby boomer women and all the things that I do with them. But let's stick with the corporate training. I love going into an organisation and training their people in how to get a better result in life. And my favourite group, to be honest, is those middle managers, because they're expected to know the leadership training they never got. One of the things that's challenging about doing that, I've done seminars as well, but going into the work group scenario is that on average 20 to 30% of them don't want to be there.
Very true.
And this is a huge emotional barrier to learning anything.
There's nothing where I'm a trainer as well. And whenever I start a workshop, I always ask people, did you sign up for this? Or are you here because it's part of the program and you have to be here? Because it makes such a difference as to how I'll actually be tailoring the workshops for the individuals. Because if they have to be there, they're just marking time. But if they've signed up for it themselves, they're there and they're hungry for the information. So I can see how you would, come across a few challenges. But so what type of leadership training do you provide?
So the leadership training that is my absolute preference is, and it's the overriding banner as such, it's leadership with integrity. Now, I believe leadership is everyone's business. So it's not just about the role that you're in, whether you're a supervisor or a team leader or a manager. I've had CEOs sit in on my sessions. It's about members of the team are also in a leadership role. Most people actually want to have the responsibility of their job and doing the best job that they can. Not everyone, I understand that, but most people do. So when I have these people in the room, I finally worked out ways, because it can be a bit challenging, as we've already discussed, to present complex concepts around how to do stuff to get a better result. For a start, they're there challenged by the fact that they're, as we've already discussed, at the training session anyway. So then they're there feeling that they're not good enough. And of course, that may be one of the reasons why they are there, because their boss wants to help them. So many see training as punitive. It's a punishment rather than how I see it. I've paid, since I've started my own business over 8 years ago, over $100,000 on different trainings to upskill myself, to make myself understand the different ways to get a message across. So I crave, someone said to me, Victoria, come to this free training, you're going to get a lot from it. And they're not just trying to sell me something, of course. I would be there.
Yes, well, I think with some of the training that you're actually offering, a lot of it would be self-leadership. If they're not in a leadership role already, self-leadership's so important, isn't it?
Indeed. And the thing that I'm changing for this year too, actually, I wasn't going to share this, but why not? One of my favourite sessions is on communication skills. People are staggered as to why they cannot get their message across often. Now, the bonus of any of these sessions, as you would well know, Jane, is that it's not just about the workplace, it's about the home place as well. They're not really separate as far as your communicating skills. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is creating a session not on communication. People see the word communication, and my experience has been that they put, I don't need that. I'm fairly well okay with how I communicate, and they're not, of course. But I'm changing the word this year to conversation. And one of the things that, and you've already mentioned this, gosh, you're intuitive, is my word for this year is resilience. So to be resilient and to have resilient conversations. And I'm really excited about that, because that's what I've been doing all the time, but I hadn't realized that that's the exact banner that it sits under. So that's my new offering for this year, Resilient Conversations, Jane.
Well, I think that's much in need for so many people, because especially as you know, I work in the corporate sector, and there's a lot of organizational change. And my specialty is transition coaching, so helping people through, a whole variety of career transitions. But what I've noticed is that there is a lack of resilience. And if people are used to, the status quo and having things ticking along, comfortably in a certain way, when change happens, and it is inevitable, it will happen, no matter how you want something to stay the same, it's not. If they don't have that resilience and also self-reliance to be able to, pick themselves up and think, okay, well, what else can I do? How can I take control of the situation? Without that resilience, they tend to fall in a heap, and it makes everything so much harder, because I'm a firm believer in there is always a way.
Absolutely.
And the power of positivity, it's not just thinking, oh, things will be all right. It's, I know I can make it all right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's. I think we've got a lot in common there, Victoria.
We
So
absolutely do.
I'm very excited for you to get everything up and running, and let me know because I'll help you promote it for sure.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Thank you.
partnerships in the making, Victoria.
Woohoo!
Now, there's something even more exciting that you've done, and I mean everything sounds so interesting, but you have written this book, How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life. Now, you're someone who, you're just so full of life and energy and light and fun. And so I'm sure that's all in your book as well. But tell us about your book.
Thank you. My book, it's a labour of love. And I wrote the majority of this book, I'll say it this way. So I put the first word down on paper on the first day of May, and the last day of November I had a solid book that had thud value in my hand, and very proud of it. What was it like in that time frame? It certainly, one didn't have a life that one would normally have, but that's what you've got to do when you get this intuitive feeling that this information needs to get out there. Then you will do what you must do. You'll do what it takes to get it out there. Now, this book in particular is taken from all of my corporate trainings over almost a decade, and it's targeted at tough love. I should say the tagline is tough love for smart single women over 60. Now, why did I do that? Well, I'm way over 60, and in my sessions, I notice so many women either resentful or resigned. Now, not all, but so many were. It was like there's what's left in life. I'm invisible. No one's valuing me. I'm just in the back benches, as it were. So I thought, no, life doesn't have to be that way. There is no use by date. So that's when I chose to write this book. And the other reason is you try and find a book that is especially for women who are 60 and above. There's not much out there. And I wanted to write the book to give them solid, practical advice and also a formula to follow that would help them if they choose to lead a better life. And it will absolutely work. They have to decide to change.
That is a wonderful premise. My favorite takeaway from that explanation is there is no use-by date.
Yes.
I love that. So it's tough love for smart women over 60.
Yes.
What a great tagline there too. Yeah, I'm excited. This is really good. I haven't reached 60 yet, but there is so much more to do. Obviously, once you get there, and you're right. This sort of air of invisibility that sometimes women, as they get a little bit more mature in years, they tend to take a little bit of a step back and think, oh, okay, well, I won't push myself forward anymore. And why is it that women fear aging so much? Whereas, now this is a bit of a broad sweeping statement, but men seem to embrace aging and women don't.
Because men still look good or can look good, and I'm not saying this, right? This is what society's saying. A man who's got the salt and pepper hair, who still managed to keep himself slim and got a suit on and a nice smile, and he knows how to talk, he's got those years of wisdom, is quite charismatic and can be, I should say, and charming person who is attractive. Whereas, and now a woman can be like that. But with our society, a man is judged by his possessions, so what he has, and that's how he's judged. Whereas a woman, whether we like it or not, and the proof is all around us, is judged by how she looks. It's changing. It is changing, and I'm one of the ones that wants to change that, because our older baby boomers, or should I say our baby boomers, are Australia's greatest resource, and at the moment they're being wasted.
I 100% agree with you. And this thing about men aging better than women, there's a poster boy for this, and it's Sean Connery. Wouldn't you agree?
Ah, yes.
The older he gets, the better he seems to get. Although nowadays there are a lot more women who are so amazing the older they get as well. And I'm just thinking of people like Helen Mirren.
Yes.
And Dame Judi Dench.
Yes.
And I mean, they're really inspirational because there's so much life in them. They're very powerful, but the key is they've got that self-belief.
Yes.
And I think if they can do it, we can all do it. And certainly, Victoria, you do it because you exude confidence and beauty and energy, and you've done so many things, and it's amazing. It's almost like you had 4 lives all rolled up into one life.
Well, thank you. Now, having said all that, I want to say that I've been in a lot of dark spaces in my life as well. It and clearly from my beginnings and what has happened, but I guess that's the thing. It's the resilient thing. I just like sometimes one of the things that works against us is the sad stories that we make up about our life and the victim and all of that. And the thing is, you've got to stop focusing on those things, and it's having the discipline and, well, first of all, wanting to do it, because some people do get a lot of attention and they like to be in a victim mode, and if that's how they choose to live their life, that's fine. That's not how I choose to live my life, because I have spent a part of my life in the victim mode and I didn't like it.
No, the thing is that we choose to be a victim.
Yes.
And if you choose not to be a victim, as long as you know how to reach out and get the support that you need to be able to take the brave step to take control of your life, then there's always a way out, not to be the actual victim itself. But sometimes it really is quite difficult, and that's where a support group is very, very important.
And we have sayings that keep us in our comfort zones or keep us from jumping or doing something different. And one of those sayings is, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
I don't like that saying, Victoria.
No. It keeps women in abusive relationships because they say that. Yep. It keeps us from doing anything. And all we're talking about is devils here.
Yeah,
what about the angels?
Right. Yeah. And there are angels out there. There are angels out there, but you just need to be very, very careful and set a very strong plan. But actually, that could be a whole podcast in itself, really. But right now, I think more power to women, and especially the baby boomer women. Yes. Now, Victoria, I know you've got a very special offer for our listeners, because you've got this fabulous online training called Purpose. 7 powerful ways to unlock your purpose in life. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So anyone that takes this course, they are quick sessions that will explain with a bit of enthusiasm. Be aware I'm an enthusiastic instructor, how I am in those videos, how I am in the classroom, because I love what I do and it's real. And I know that this stuff works. So there are 7 different ways that are clearly explained and with humour to help people, because you might be surprised, Jane, to hear that so many women, and not just women. I mean, I know enough about all the men that have been in my sessions. Over 12,500 participants have been to my sessions over almost a decade, that they've got problems too. Of course they have. It seems to be part of the human condition. But in this purpose, 7 powerful ways to unlock your potential in life, is aimed at any age group, and male or female. It is for you to have a look at the different ways to discover what is your purpose in life, because you don't want to wait until you're on your deathbed to have regrets about the stuff that you didn't do, about the fact that you finally realized you had that ladder of success up against the wrong building, that it's not successful. So find out now. Find out what really matters to you.
That's a wonderful, wonderful course that you're offering. And I believe you have a very special offer for our listeners.
Absolutely do. So the website is theleadershipvoice.com. And when you get to the welcoming home page, you'll see a little tab called Jane. Just click on
I'm so honoured. I'm so honoured.
Click on Jane and you'll be taken to a page. It's got my course there. Click on there are 4 areas you can click on, any of the images. And my course is $39 US normally. As a special to you, $9 US is the price to download this course and work your way through unlocking that purpose.
Unbelievable. For $9, you can take control of your life.
Oh, yes.
That's great. So the website to go to is theleadershipvoice.com. Click on the tab that says Jane, and you'll be able to get 7 powerful ways to unlock your purpose in life, not for $39, but for only $9 US. I'll have this in my show notes in my website, janejacksoncoach.com. So if you don't write it down now, you can go to my website and you'll be able to find all of the information in the show notes in my podcast section. And that's a very generous offer, Victoria, and it's such great training, and it comes to you in short sound bites so that you can delve in the different areas that you're really interested in. And Victoria's created a fantastic program, so I suggest you hop on there and give it a go.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah. Now, Victoria, I would love to talk to you all day. However, I do have a time limit here, unfortunately. So sure. I'm going to have to to say thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I think we're going to have you back, because there's so much more that we can talk about in all aspects of a woman's life or a man's life, and how to take control and resilience and self-reliance and training and all sorts of amazing things. So thank you so much for your time today, Victoria. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you, Jane, and I look forward to that as well.
Okay, take care, Victoria. Bye.
Bye.
Today's podcast is brought to you by audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers. There are over 180,000 book titles to choose, so give it a go and get your free audiobook today from audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.